All right, so here we are live again. A lot of things going on in the world of beekeeping right now. I just got back from Scottsville, Kentucky, doing a conference up there, and it was really nice of them to invite me. I got to see several of you that I know, and you watch my videos, and I appreciate you. Thanks for coming and seeing me there. It's really nice to start seeing more bee meetings and get involved with a lot more people. I have, I think, 9 meetings come up between now and the first week of April. So, going to be pretty busy. I told Laurel last year that this year was going to be a little bit more relaxed, but yeah, those are the lies we tell ourselves, and sometimes tell our spouses, which we're gonna have to do a little bit better job of that for sure. Hey guys, thanks for coming on. Good to see you guys. Hope you're doing good. Your bees are doing good. There's actually a tiny bit of pollen coming in right now here in Middle Tennessee. Not a lot. I think we're getting a little bit of trickle of the first maple pollens. So that's exciting. All right, all right. Lots of people coming on. So, one thing I want to say real quick, we'll get into a lot of questions and answers into this one, finally getting back to those. Just focus on those questions and answers. The 17th of February, I will be hosting Cameron Jack, and we'll be going over our oxalic acid research with the experimental yard. He'll be showing their oxalic acid research. We're going to be able to ask him some questions, kind of what oxalic acid is doing for us now, what adjustments maybe need to be made legally, what improvements can be made, or just what are they seeing, what are the common denominators, how effective are things, and maybe should we be changing some things. And I really think that Cameron is going to be awesome to get to talk to over the phone. He was seemed really cool. A warm day here, 18 degrees now. That's awful warm. Maybe that's yeah, that's cold. The humidity in Tennessee, the humidity is really low this time of the year, low for us. I don't know exactly what the humidity is right now. You could probably look Tennessee, humidity right now, Middle Tennessee, Nashville. That'd probably be close enough, and see where we're at. But it's definitely lower in the winter time than it is in the summer. If you don't count all the rain we get. Do you think an 8 frame brood box would work for single brood management? I think it'd be really difficult to work if you had some really vigorous queens. If you have some queens that are a little bit older, maybe not laying quite as aggressively, I think you can make that work. And I still think you might be able to make it work if you pull the bees back more. I think that's one of the things. And you have to have excess comb too. So this is what I'm thinking. If I was running an 8 frame equipment, I'm like, okay, I want to go single brood management. How can I make this work for me? First of all, I want to have extra drawn combs if possible, because that's always nice to have. And then you're just going to go in there and go, all right, we've got 8 frames right here, and the queen is laying just solid. And if she's a good queen, she should lay those 8 frames solid with brood during peak season. So you're going to go down in there and pull a frame of brood out. Maybe it's a frame of larvae or two. And the reason I go for the larvae is a couple reasons. First of all, it's going to take longer for that to get on out. And obviously, if you leave capped brood, that is going to emerge the quickest. So that's going to be available to the queen the fastest as well. Also, we want those bees that are going to be emerging out of capped brood as soon as possible. If we're right in the middle of our honey flow or at the beginning of it, because they're going to come out and become foragers faster and capitalize on that flow. So if I'm going to pull frames, go in there and yank frames and exchange combs down in that brood nest, then we're totally going for the larvae over the capped brood. And you can give those larvae to a colony that has enough bees to cover them and take care of them and give them a little bit of a boost. But I'm thinking with an 8 frame single brood management, it's going to be more labor intensive because they just don't have as much space to for the queen to lay. And that's going to be your big issue, is making sure that queen stays in room to lay. If you have a queen that's maybe only laying at 80% of what a great queen will do, then it might actually work out pretty good. But if you want the biggest honey crops and great colonies, you want those awesome layers. Hopefully that answers your question to a degree. Spring almost here in the UK. Well, send some of it on down this way, would you? We're not too far away from it ourselves, actually, Steve. It was about almost 50 degrees Fahrenheit today, so that was really nice. I know, Chris. I do need a haircut. It's getting bad. In my defense, I've been really busy. I've been having to every time I go to see the lady that does hair here in Gainsborough, there's only one person that really does hair in this whole town, and, and that's for women, guys, the whole 9 yards, and so I think there might be a small like, someone that does it at their house, but, this business has been around, I think, since the '50s. Her dad started it, or maybe it was her grandpa. Either way, that's where I get my hair done, and she does a great job, but it's hard to, she's so good at it. High demand, short supply. It's kinda like never mind. Uh, 20 degrees, alright. I might checked 4 out of 7 of my hives yesterday, 1, 2, and 4, and the 4th was a 25 count. Woo! The 4th didn't have any Apivar. How fast does Apivar work considering capped brood might be present? Well, Jason, I don't know how much capped brood you have this time of the year or your location. If there's not a lot of capped brood, it should work really good. I know there's been some people like myself that have had some issues with Apivar, but there are some people that are saying that it's still working good for them. I would say that it's a whole lot better than using nothing. That's for certain. So stick it in there. Do it. Maybe do if you have oxalic acid, hit them with oxalic acid, then drop the strips in right afterwards, and then maybe do an alcohol wash after the treatment period's over and see if you need to do any cleanup. But hopefully that Apivar will get them down. But definitely kill those mites. Good job doing an alcohol wash, though. It really opens your eyes to what the conditions are and how many colonies. It's quite a bit of variables. Maple Blossom in Michigan is April. Wow. All right. So you guys still have a ways to go, Steve. I really appreciate you, man. And talking to you reminds me that we almost have the videos done. Not completely, but we're making some good progress. I was able to see a little bit of a sneak peek. The audio sounds really good, which was my biggest concern on the conference videos, so the audio is really good, and I'm excited about that. And thanks, Steve, for supporting us and supporting some of the things that we did at the conference, even though you weren't able to be there. We appreciate you. And America's Bee, thank you very much as well for supporting us again. Have you heard of on the spot method? That's what OTS, folks, means. On the spot queen rearing, or OTS queen rearing. If so, what do you think about it? Maybe a test yard comparison one day. That would be an interesting test. I don't know if I'll get to it this year, but it's something I would like to do. And that's one thing that we are really transitioning hard. I know on your end you can't see a lot of it, but we are really focusing hard on transitioning a full-time honey production nucleus colony business into more of a research and educational business instead. And part of me doesn't like that idea, and part of me thinks that it's a good idea. The, Part of the reason why I'm wanting to go into it is because there's a lot of guys that produce nukes. There's a lot of people that produce honey, and I'll still be producing both of those, just to a lesser extent. I think we're going to just shoot for around 10,000 pounds of honey a year, at least until the kids are a little bit older. And then we'll see how many nukes that we can sell and queens on top of that. But I think there's a need. I want to know more. I want to know more about the Varroa issue and research like OTS, but I've never actually done OTS, American Bees. So uh, someone would have to talk about that more. I prefer the GM Doolittle method of raising queens, and but I'm used to that. And when I'm raising queens, I want to raise a bunch, a couple hundred at a time. But even the 5 frame nuke method that we have videos on, you can raise 10 queens, a couple dozen queens, 5 queens with that pretty easily. And at the end of it, you just leave a queen left over or two queen cell in that nucleus colony. You raise them in, and then you have a nice, really strong nuke that's ready to go into a single with a fresh queen. So Jason says it was my first wash. Definitely was a little apprehensive about killing bees, but I understand the importance in Southwest Florida. Ah, Florida. Okay, yeah, definitely get those mites under control, buddy, so your bees can really take advantage of the season as it's really coming fast. And for you guys down there, you guys are probably starting to get pollens already down there in Florida, I'd say, or really getting close to it. But yeah, the alcohol wash isn't fun. I'm hoping they make a better CO2 version out there where we can knock the bees out, get an accurate count. Even if it was just, even a few percentage points off of as accurate as the alcohol wash, I still think it would be worth it. And then you can save all those bees. On the research yard this year, we killed mm, roughly 30,000 bees in alcohol washes for the experimental yard. And we counted those. It was fun. So Phil the Bee Man, I'm looking for ideas for treating Varroa inside my wintering barn. Hives are stacked on pallets, so no lifting of the lid. Everything has to go in the entrance and not kill me while I'm doing it. Yeah, that last part's kind of important if you want to do this for a while. Hmm. Well, with the oxalic acid vapor, obviously you have to have a respirator, and oxalic acid breaks down really quick. So could you not be like all suited up, have a respirator, and treat them like that, Phil the Bee Man, in your shed, or does that cause some issues with your wintering barn? I don't, of course, I don't know anything about wintering in sheds, and I imagine CO2 and temperature and a lot of different things play a role. It'd be interesting for me to learn more about that. I'm a curious guy. All right, boy, this thing jumped around on me. Kamon, please answer Michelle Irwin's question. Okay, where did that go? I did not see that. Is that way up there? Hmm. And you'll have to apologize that a lot of these things just zip by me so quickly. Ah, okay. Well, I see. Maybe they can ask that question again. That would be good. Temperature is about 5 Celsius, so not sure it'll penetrate the cluster. That's a good point, Phil. I didn't consider your temperature being that cold. Is there a way, Phil? And maybe this is more of a pain than it's worth, or be really hard. Is there a way to warm that room up to a temperature? It still might not be that loose, where you could do it maybe what would be just above freezing. The bees wouldn't break cluster, but they would loosen it up a little bit, and then you could do it. Seems like a lot of work. Um, what else could you do? The only thing I can think of is Apivar, but you've probably already used that, I would say. Hey, Dean Alley, thanks for coming to the conference. I'm glad you had a great time. It was a lot of fun. The bluegrass was fun. I hadn't played a bluegrass show in like 7 years, and I was more nervous about getting on stage and playing bluegrass after all that time than I was about getting up there and running my mouth. So, well, I run my mouth, I suppose, a lot more. Don Bearden, I didn't see that question. I ran through the entire list. Maybe you can point it out to me somehow, or Michelle can say it again. Somehow I keep scrolling up and I keep overlooking. Oh, nope, I found it. I found it. My bees were bringing in a ton of pollen today. I haven't seen anything blooming though. Any idea what they're getting it from? Birmingham, Alabama. Now maybe Don and a few other people in Alabama can answer this, but I would imagine that in Birmingham, you're probably seeing maple pollen. Our trees are just starting it a little bit, and you guys are quite a bit south than me. Probably Birmingham's at least 2 weeks ahead of me, 10 to 14 days. So that should be maple pollen for us. So I would say it's maple pollen. That means your bees are going to be raising brood, because there's nothing really like maple pollen that gets them just wanting to raise that brood. So, Michelle Irwin, I would say that is probably what that is. Could be wrong, but That usually kicks off a lot of the southern state season, and I think a lot of northern states. Maple trees are a wonderful source of pollen early in the season. Are you going to use any Hive Alive pollen patties this spring on some colonies? Hive Alive pollen patties. Oh, are you talking the like the algae ones? I don't think those are Hive Alive healthy bee patties. Now there is Hive Alive fondant. Why does everybody have to have the same sounding name? Like every Varroa treatment's Apa this, Apa guard, Apa var, Apa life var, all that stuff. All right, back to questions. Collecting sap started yesterday for my kids. Maple sap is rising on East Tennessee. Hey, that is awesome. Maple syrup is good stuff. Now if we could just get the bees to do it for us. Oh, Phil, thanks very much. I know you and your son play bluegrass, so I appreciate that from another set of musicians. Yeah, I watch Phil's videos. Justin. I've seen Phil, the B Man's videos several times. I actually watched his son play fiddle on a maybe that wasn't a YouTube video, but at least a Facebook video. Yeah, trying to rotate away from Apivar, Phil. Yeah, it's really frustrating. So, folks have, we've been talking with Phil for a second about, treating. He's up in Canada, so right now it's extremely cold. Clusters are tight, and oxalic acid vapor does not penetrate the clusters good when the clusters are really tight. So he's trying to find a way to chip away at the mites more. It really makes a difference, taking advantage of it. Here in Tennessee, though, we get 50-degree Fahrenheit days. In December, we'll get 60-degree Fahrenheit days. And especially as we get along into February, we could get several more 50-degree days. It's supposed to be 47, I believe, tomorrow Fahrenheit. So we can use oxalic acid vapor and clean those mites up. But his bees are so tightly clustered. But he uses Apivar as a mainstay treatment. Now, the reason I talk about those two products kind of primarily right now is because of the products that we have. Those are the most gentle. You can treat your colonies. It doesn't noticeably affect the bees in a damaging way or brood production. Whereas something like formic acid, Apiguard, and any of the stronger smelling products that really vapor through the colony can slow the bees down because it blocks communication. They also could have some adverse effects at times, and they're just a harder treatment. If we're just being honest here, they're harder on everything, bees and mites. Doesn't mean you can't use them. I do like Apiguard, and some people love formic acid, but they're not as gentle as oxalic acid or as Apivar. But really, as far we really could use another treatment that's like Apivar, where you could stick the strips in, hopefully do a wonderful job killing the mites. But you want to rotate those treatments because some of the treatments in the past that no longer work, the mites developed resistance to because they were being used repetitively. And some of them would build up in the wax tube, and so the mites were exposed to sublethal levels. How do you clean the alcohol cup after the count cheesecloth to filter the mites out to reuse the wash? I found Randy Oliver's method. Okay, so Jason, yeah, you could use a cheesecloth or make some type of a screen. I've got a couple videos on two different types of alcohol wash cups that I use. They already have built-in screens. So I use the Varroa Easy Check. It's a little pricey. I think it's like 25 or so dollars. They are made pretty well, and it screens it out really fast, the bees and everything, and gives me a good count. But if you're doing your own homemade one, you can get some number 8 hardware cloth or use, yes, cheesecloth, and that'll filter the dead bees out. And then you can pour off the alcohol into another cup and just make sure you leave all the mites in the last cup. When should I put out swarm traps in southern Illinois? So here in Tennessee, I don't want to have my swarm traps out any later than the first weekend, really the first day of March. So you're probably 2 weeks behind me, maybe in southern Illinois, 10, so for you, it'd be good to go ahead and put them up around the same time I do, but you probably won't have a lot of swarming issues in southern Illinois until around the 2nd of March. And that's still the very early parts of it. So you won't get a lot of swarming that early, but some of the biggest and nicest swarms that you'll catch will actually be earlier than what a lot of people think that you'll catch them. And a lot of times those are from beekeepers or maybe just a really nice prime condition swarm that went into a small cavity in a tree and they build up quick and they have to get out. There's no room for any of the pollen or the expansion of the brood nest, and they just go ahead and swarm. And they're usually pretty big and massive early in the season. A lot of my early swarms, I think, come from beekeepers that have really strong colonies, and maybe they left them in a single and didn't get the second brood chamber on because they think, well, it's been 50 or 60 degree, outside. There's no reason for us to get out into the bees, and you don't realize that here in Tennessee, your biggest and strongest, your baddest colonies will have maybe a swarm cell on the first week of March. So I go ahead. That's when I see swarm cells on the earliest in is usually around the first week of March. So that's when I put mine up. Thank you, thank you, thank you very much. Yeah, the Billy Strings joke. Yeah, I did see that. Okay, wow, I'm way behind on questions. Cayman, when do you treat for mites and what do you use? Thanks. Treat 3 times a year. I actually talked about this yesterday in Scottsville, and some people were like, "Wow, that's a lot of treating." Yeah, but we I found it works really good. And it's better to control Varroa too well than not enough. It definitely will put money in your pocket and honey in your jars. So we treat 2 times with oxalic acid vapor in December. You can do it this time of the year too, but if they're already brooding a little bit, it won't be near as effective. But I wanted to get at least 2 treatments in December, and we do them on the at least 40 degrees Fahrenheit or warmer. The more the temperature is up, the less the bees will be condensed in a cluster, and the more that oxalic acid vapor permeates through that cluster. So I really think 2 times minimum. The research that we have on the experimental yard, we didn't even get in the mid 80s with the oxalic acid on broodless colonies. And talking to Cameron Jack on the phone, they've had similar results. So a lot of this information that says one treatment of oxalic acid vapor is going to eliminate 90% of the mites in a broodless situation is not, we're finding, is not carrying weight. Now, obviously, I could be wrong, but I trust the University of Florida more than I trust my own data, and they're saying that's been their experience. And so I've that's one of the reasons why I treat twice is just to make sure go ahead and get it done. And Bob Benny does it 3 times a winter. Now I'm going to get my supers pulled in June because our honey flow is done by the end of June for sure. So let's get those honey supers pulled as fast as we can so we can focus on killing mites. We can focus on um, requeening colonies if we need to, making splits if we need to, whatever it is. We need to get out of the phase of honey and we need to get into the phase of summer management, leading to strong fall clusters that go into strong wintering colonies. The biggest part of that is making sure there's enough nutrition, a good queen, and got to have dead mites. So we're treating in June with something like Apiguard, thymol product. This is our regular operation, not the experimental yard. And then we are going to check with alcohol washes in August and see if we need to treat again. And we'd like to rotate something here. So typically, especially back when I trusted Apivar a lot more, we would do Apivar at one point and then do Apiguard on another and then do oxalic acid. So that'd be 3 different treatments. And a lot of people say that's expensive and excessive. Well, if you're charging $10 a pound for honey and you can get a colony to make 100 pounds because they're awesome, then 100 pounds, $10 a pound, $1,000 a hive. And, even if you just get 80 pounds at that price, it's $800, spend $20 in treatments, you know, to me, it's worth it. And you have healthy bees, and healthy bees you can make splits off of and get that honey crop too. At least I can. Steve Chubb, man, you're really too nice. I'm going to have to take Laurel out to a nice dinner with that. I'm going to surprise, actually, we're not too far off our anniversary. So, and I may or may not be teaching a bee conference on our anniversary weekend, but I did get permission. I did get permission. Let it be known. I got my wife's permission. My wife is awesome. She really is. But I'm going to say this is an early anniversary, and I appreciate that, Steve, very much. I do. All right, missing a lot of questions here, but that's how I treat my bees 3 times a year. Whew. So I'm sorry if I missed any questions up above. You can, throw them back down again, and I'll try to get to them. I need to talk a little faster, apparently, or maybe just say it quicker. Yeah, I thought there was some wonderful presentations. I got the list right here. We had Jake Osborne. He's a buddy of mine. He's in my age group, which is unique in beekeeping, and runs several hundreds of hives. He's been down in Florida, and they're already getting nectar shakes in the orange groves, which is really cool. And there was John Pace and several other great speakers there as well. I wasn't able to meet everybody. There were just so many people talking bees. It was just a lot of fun. Really quick, I want to remind everybody the 17th of this month, 17th of February. It is going to be. Don't quote me on this. I believe it's 7 p.m. like we normally do. We are going to be interviewing Cameron Jack on oxalic acid. So tune in for that if you have the time. If not, you can watch it later. It'll be recorded and you can watch it. I can't wait to hear his talk on oxalic acid. Yeah, oxalic acid vapor can be used around 40 degrees. Some people use it a little bit cooler. I really think oxalic acid vapor is best 40 degrees Fahrenheit or warmer. The warmer it is, the less the bees are clustered, more it permeates through. And that's 2 grams of oxalic acid per single brood chamber. So if you have a double deep, I do 4 grams. And in the wintertime when they're broodless, you don't have to like wait a week, wait X amount of days. You could probably do it in the morning, come back in the evening and do it again. Or you could do it one day, and if the next day it's 50 degrees again or something like that in December, come back and do it again the next day. I know this seems like a lot of work, but if you have good, healthy bees, clean those mites up. When you get those mites down close to zero, it really takes them a long time to build up, and it really allows your bees to be able to go through winter with less attrition and bounce out of it and really produce a lot of bees and honey. Question, Cayman, have you heard anything on the transmission of deformed wing virus and other disease transmitted by small hive beetles? No, Greg. I have not heard anything about small hive beetles transmitting deformed wing virus. Have you heard anything about that, Greg? Cayman, do you concern yourself with oxalic acid and drone health? Some empiric literature suggests OA if is harmful to drones. It could, and it may be. I don't know. I've never seen any um, significant data on that. It doesn't mean that that it could be an issue. Some treatments actually are an issue with drone sperm viability. However, we don't use oxalic acid when there are drones, really. I only use it in wintertime or when the colonies are almost broodless. So that being the case, it it's not going to be used any time that we have drones around, and it degrades so fast. Oxalic acid doesn't build up in wax. It literally degrades into natural elements that are already present in the hive. So that's one of the nice things about oxalic acid. It's a gentle treatment, but the problem with oxalic acid vapor is it's a short-lived, gentle treatment, so it doesn't kill mites for a long period. Really, just a flash treatment. Basically, whatever's exposed to it during treatment is what it kills. I would say oxalic acid dribble extends a little bit longer because it's sticky and it gets on the bees and gets on the frames and stuff, and so it tracks a little bit better being gummy. But even it doesn't last for several days or anything like what a lot of people used to believe oxalic acid did. Came when I used your old pollen patty recipe and have a few pounds left from last fall stored in the fridge. Do you think it would still be okay to feed this spring, or should I make some fresh? As long as you don't have any significant mold or anything like that, I would say it'd be fine. Pollen patties last pretty well. So just look at the texture, look at it. The nutritional quality might be a little bit lower than it was made fresh, but I do know that, Man Lake and a lot of these companies that make pollen sub, they store it for long periods of time. I'm sure just like flour and stuff, fresh ground is always best. The fresher, the better. Because, I've had some people say, well, it doesn't really lose any nutritional quality. I beg to differ. If you can smell something, it is losing something. I mean, it might be just a tiny bit, but things lose quality over time. Now, I don't think it's a lot. I fed patties that are a year old on a frequent basis. So as long as there's nothing wrong with it and the texture's good, feed away. Hmm. Okay. Jump back down. Ripple effect. Now I've got to ask you, you've changed your name like 400 times, haven't you? I mean, it's been Merry Christmas, it's been this, and it's been that. I have no issues with it. I find it really interesting that you're constantly changing your name like that. It makes it hard for me to remember as well. But hey, I remember you as the guy that's hard to remember. So thank you for the $5 donation for the support that you've given us in the past. When do you start doing splits? Have you tried the ProVap 110 Easy? And how do you like that hive lifter you got? All right, great questions. So let's get into that. I start making splits typically around the 1st of April. I have made them as early as the first week of March from Hawaiian queens. It's definitely hard to do that. So here in Tennessee, we're shooting for no earlier than the first week of April. And definitely the best splits are made between the first week of April here in my area to about the end of June. You can make splits in July and August, but it's harder because it's full blown robbing and dearth season. And if you're going to make splits, then they need to be strong, need to feed them really good. Have you tried the ProVap 110 Easy? I have not. I have talked to a couple of my buddies who have purchased the 110 Easy and they really like it. However, one of those guys that says he really likes a lot of things for about 2 years and then he gets out of it and tries something else. So I personally have not used it. It looks nice though. I would like to try a ProVap 110 Easy. How do you like that hive lifter that you have? I really like it. Its biggest Achilles heel is level ground. And here in Tennessee, we don't have any of that unless you get a bulldozer and pour some concrete. It can't, we do have some spots. It doesn't have to be like perfectly level though. As long as it's semi level, it will work. And I like it. It saves my back during the honey flow, or from even moving singles around. If you put a strap around the colony, you pick it up by the handles and you can move it. Now, it will pick up a lot of weight, but I don't like picking up a lot of weight with it. No more, in my opinion, that do I want to lift than two deep boxes at a time, because if I have to push it around and twist it around, it's just too much torque when that machine's lifted up. I feel like it's going to wear it out prematurely. I'll do three mediums for sure. Honestly, I've done four mediums and I feel pretty comfortable with that. But I don't like doing like three deeps or five mediums. It can it's strong enough to pick it up, but it's when you're moving it around and it starts swaying. I feel like that's really rough on the joints. But other than those issues, I found that lifter is really nice. Hey, Ian, good to see that you're on. Please keep that cold weather up there. We've had a lot of it down here in Tennessee, and we're really done. Your friend Kamon. Hey, I've got a big list back here. See that name up there, Ian? That's yours. That says Ian Stepler and single brood management. That's the talks for some of the people that we're looking at having speak next year. I have several more on the way that I'm looking into, and the conference survey, we finished making it um, last night. It's going to be uploaded within the next day or two. And so, anyone who went to the conference and would like to leave some feedback on what they'd like to hear next year, what they'd like to see, improvements that we can make, or things you've seen at other conferences that maybe would add something to ours, or something maybe you didn't like, let us know so we can make this the best conference that we can. But yeah, Ian's up there, so he's going to be down, even if I have to call Trudeau and make a formal complaint. Let's see. Yeah, got a lot of good names. I got some interesting speakers. I think we already have 5 speakers lined up right now that we've never had before, and we will have 2 rooms, so we'll have a lot more availability to have diverse topics. But I want to hear from you guys. What topics do you want to hear at the Hive Life conference that'll help you in your beekeeping season? All right, more questions. Hmm. 60 degrees in Central Florida. Ah, send some of that up. T-shirt weather. Yeah, thanks, Steve. I think it did. I think it did a really good job. We as far as the YouTube family is getting quite large. So many people that are on here, that are either YouTubers or whatever that came to the conference and filmed stuff and showed. And I'm so thankful they did because I didn't have the time to do it. I didn't have time to sit down with anybody for more than a second and say, "Hey, thanks for coming." That's about it. And so these other YouTubers were able to film stuff and interview people and show off not only the conference but what some of the vendors were doing. And I wanted to, but I didn't have a lot of time to do that and show some of the unique things. I just talked to a vendor who is planning on coming if they can, and they're planning on it, and they produce all kinds of pollinator, especially honeybee related plants, and they bring them in plugs and rootstocks and grafts, all kinds of different things. And we're talking like basswood trees, black locust, avodias, which are also known as the BB tree. Just several different plants, button bush, all kinds of things. So we're planning on having that at the conference next year. So that'll be cool. If you're a nerd like me for plants, that is going to be a neat thing to have. All right, I need a little bit of energy. And I like to say thanks to when I went to Scottsville, Dave Hansberry, who came to our conference too, gave me this jar of honey and also another jar that has some cut comb honey in there. So I'll be sampling that later. But I have got to eat some honey right now. So I'm sure this is. I think I told him at the conference. I tried a little bit. It actually looks really good. Need to enter that in the honey show. That's good honey. The only thing it needs is a biscuit and a pat of butter. Ooh, second best honey in the world right there. Steve Allen says, Cayman, what is the best way to remove bees from supers when pulling them for honey extraction? Great question. So there's multiple ways to do this. You can use bee escapes. I used those this year with that hive lifter and worked really good. Now, with small hive beetle, you need to have this timed. You put them on, come back at 24. I usually come about 30 hours later or so, 36 hours. Try to give it more than a day and push the bees down through those escapes. And they do a really good job. And then you can use a bee blower, and that works really good. However, I've used a fume board quite a bit too. And I like Honey Bandit for that. There's Honey Robber, which is, I think it's butric acid. It smells like vomit. Spill that in your car, and well, it's done. Even the Honey Bandit, which is I think based off of almond oil, I think it's really strong. I like the smell of it for about the first 5 minutes, and then after a while, it's just so strong it gets old. But it pushes the bees down. So some people use fume boards. I have a video on that, and also you can use bee escapes. But when you have small hive beetles, you've got to make sure if you use bee escapes that you get it off and then you extract it really fast because the more time that there's no bees guarding that honey, the more damage that could possibly happen. And the beetles really don't ever bother straight honey. It's when you have bee bread packed underneath honey. If they can get down into that, they'll lay eggs all in that. And then you'll have hundreds, if not thousands, of small hive beetles sliming everything with their gross yeast slime that they spread everywhere. And yeah, there goes hundreds of dollars of honey. So not cool. Fume boards work really good. So do escapes. I wouldn't buy a I would try a little bit of each, maybe get in a skateboard and then get some fume board, fume board with some honey bandit. Try them out yourself and see which one you prefer. There's several commercial beekeepers that argue which way is the best way, but I think they're both good options myself. So this Yeah, make sure, Tennessee Tim, if you can fill out that survey, so I'll have a record of that. But yeah, speak on the ups and downs of commercial pollination work at the conference, the do's and the don'ts. That's definitely not my forte. All right, so Ian's actually down there, a Canadian beekeeper's blog. That is Ian. He's leaving some. Oh, yeah, he's talking. Okay, he's actually directing that towards me. I thought he was answering the question himself. All right. Hmm. So I leave the skateboards on for 3 days, then in the hot room for 3 to 4 days with beetles. Would that create a disaster? Yeah, Ian. So I would say with that, any of your boxes that are just solid capped honey or just solid nectar, it wouldn't be a big deal unless there was a box underneath those that had bee bread in it. And if it was exposed bee bread, those beetles would lay that up. They would slime everything stacked above it. And yes, within a 7-day period, that is hosed. Totally, totally an issue. And yeah, it's a big problem for us, and that's why a lot of southern beekeepers don't use bee escapes. You can use them. Bob uses them. I used them this year with success, but you can't sit on supers for a long time. Now, Bob sits on his for a little while, but I think the way that he stores his helps with that. The humidity, he keeps the humidity really low, and small hive beetles do not thrive well in low humidity. But he will tell you that they still can do some damage in low humidity. So the moral of the story is if you have small hive beetles, and even if you don't, you need to get to your honey because it can absorb moisture into it. And you know this, Ian. I'm not talking to you. You kind of know a thing or two about honey. But if you get the honey off, that stuff's worth a lot. You're at the you can see the finish line. Just get it done. Get it over with. Hey, Brian Reese, thank you so much for coming on and being our top supporter. And I hope you're doing good. I saw a couple posts that you had. Sounds like you just got back from a concert. So you got a bunch of things. Do, do you ever work, Brian? That's what I'd like to know. I know you say that you do, but you come to the Hive Life conference, you go to that concert. I mean, when do you work bees? You need to send me some. You need to send me some videos of you working bees this year. So when I treat with oxalic acid, I usually block up the entrance for 8 to 10 minutes to allow the vapor to dwell in the hive. What, if anything, would be a drawback to doing this under 50 degrees? I don't see it being an issue under 50 degrees as far as causing damage unless you just sealed the hive so tight and it was sealed up for a long time they could suffocate. But I've sealed them for 10 minutes and I just stuff it with cloths and it gets 99.9% of the stuff to stay in. Works really good. Now, where I have seen issues, Brian, with plugging the hives is when people are treating oxalic acid in summertime. You're pushing a hot gas in with a hot natured insect during a hot time of the year. You plug it up and you can have and this is where I'll get videos. People send me videos and they'll treat them, plug them for 10 minutes. They'll open up the hive and bees will just pour out and beard like crazy. And in really extreme temperatures, especially with a hot lid, there have been beekeepers that report a lot of pupil kill because it gets so hot in there. The pupae take a lot of damage, and then they'll chuck those out. And they think the oxalic acid did that, but actually it was shutting up the hives and getting it so hot inside the colony that killed that brood. Hey, Dust Puppy, I have never used Broodminder, and I haven't really looked into it much, but it's something that has Frederick done a video on Broodminder? I don't know, but I definitely don't know much about it. Just enough to be dangerous. Brian, again, appreciate your donation so much to making these live chats for people possible and to help the bee community. And ultimately, a lot of the donations and stuff that people have sent over the years, that is what's made the Hive Life Conference possible and a lot of other things possible. And we have a lot more work to do, but now as we are really just trying to heavily focus on doing this and doing it much better, um, you're going to be seeing a lot of changes this year. I think you'll see some changes in our next video as well. Okay. Finally got a double 10 frame Apame hive. Would you recommend transferring an established colony or a 5 frame nuke and build up? Really, that's up to you, Tony Mountcastle, and both of them will do good in it. It just depends on what your goals are. If you would rather just transfer a whole colony and try to produce honey out of your Apame hive in the first year, that would be great. A 5 frame nuke would do good as well. I mean, really, I think either way, it's a great hive for either condition. Um, if it just really depends on if you want to produce honey out of it this year or not, I suppose. Hmm. So Boom Chickawawa says, "I'm a hobby beekeeper. I'm the only one. Am I the only one that freezes capped honey after removing them from the hives? I freeze the frames to make sure any invaders are frozen." That's actually a good idea. It's just really labor intensive, and I don't have enough freezer space to be able to do that. But for someone who wanted to do that or felt like this set out for a little while, I think I'm starting to see just a little bit of small hive beetles on this bit of pollen patty, or I'm concerned maybe it set out too long. Yeah, throwing them in the freezer is a great way to kill them. Most producers of cut comb and comb honey freeze it for a little while to make sure that if there's any wax moth eggs or small hive beetle, it will be killed in the egg form before you sell it to a customer. And then they get a larvae and some of the comb honey that they purchased. And that might be okay having a worm in the tequila, but it ain't cool to have a worm in the cut comb honey. That's for sure. What is the most splits you have gotten from a single colony in 1 year? Well, crypto, I've never actually just focused on making splits. I like to produce honey. I do like to produce splits, but a lot depends on your length of season. So if I'm just thinking my season here and I'm thinking just splits, I feel like I could take a great colony with a great queen. And if I purchase queens that are able to lay right away and I make the split in the first week of April, we could take a double deep colony in April, split that in four ways. We have four colonies. If we have mated queens and they all take, we have four good colonies. We build them up over the honey flow, and we could easily split those all again. So a good colony. Now you won't be making much honey, or probably no honey. Shouldn't be making any honey, not in my area. But if we split in April, my honey flow is really done by mid to early June, depending on the year. So, but over the course of that 2 months from early April to June, that one good colony split into four good colonies, divided all the resources, all give this is granted everything goes well and you get four good queens in there now. Those should all build up to double deeps by then. If you give them a little bit of feed, you'll probably need to give them a little bit of feed to make sure they'll draw out, but you don't want to feed them too much because the honey flow, and you could split those all again. So you could technically turn one colony into eight colonies in that time period. Could you split them again later? Yes, you could, but I wouldn't do it because when bees are brooding up heavily like that and building colonies up, they burn through so much bee bread. And so we don't get a lot of pollen in July and August. So if you split them again, you're dividing those resources up and it just doesn't work good. I'd say if you're really intensive, you could do at least eight good colonies. And I'm a guy that would prefer to have eight great looking splits that are nice and big and fat than to have 16 that are kind of going into winter. Less work and more production. In beekeeping, really less is more. There could be a market for wormy honey. Not this guy. Oh, I've been a beekeeper for 23 years in Brazil. I've learned a lot on this channel. Congratulations, beekeepers from the United States of America. Your pollination program is perfect. Well, I appreciate that, Vincent. I believe that's how you pronounce your name. I'm sorry if I messed it up, but I thank you for the comment. And we don't do everything perfect here in the United States, but we do have some pretty good beekeepers here. And one of these days, I want to travel to places like Brazil and other parts around the world and just see the different ways of beekeeping around the world and some of the cultural differences on how people eat honey and manage bees. I think that'd be a lot of fun and educational. Can you learn too much about bees? Nah. So getting back to some more questions, I feel like I'm forgetting to say something. I did mention earlier that Cameron Jack would be February 17th, and that'll be fun. Oh, I will be March 5th. I will be at the Tennessee Beekeepers Association conference. They are doing one March the 5th, and there's going to be several good beekeepers there. One of my buddies here in Tennessee is going to be speaking, Gus Mitchell, and he has a nice professional operation, knows a lot about comb honey. And I believe that conference is about, if you order early. I think we're still in the early ordering period. I think it's only $20 a day. It's 2-day conference, and I'll be given at least three, be involved in three presentations. But I do know I'll also be doing a Zoom for the Nebraska Hives for Heroes during that. So in between, I might be not around because I'll be presenting for that. So you may check that out as well, if, especially if you can attend. That all the money for that goes to veterans that are looking to maybe get into bees or PTSD issues. It's called Hives for Heroes. I'll be posting a link on my Facebook page and in other places as well. But I'll just be zooming that one. But Bob Benny will be there live and present. Natalie with Beekeeping with Natalie. She changed her channel name. I really like it myself because I never could relate to beekeeping like a girl. I mean, I tried to muster up my inner feminine side, and my wife says, yeah, it didn't work. It just did not work at all. So, beekeeping with Natalie is her channel. She's going to be there. She's going to tell me to tell you all don't ask her a lot of questions. So, I'm not asking you to ask her a lot of questions, but if you do, that won't hurt my feelings. She's smart for her age. This one I believe is Hives. Oh man, now that you said that, I don't know. It's Hives for Heroes. Yeah, for sure. Actually, I'm going to grab this link right here. There's a YouTube video, and sorry about the noise right there. Nature's Image Farm actually did this video, and I'm going to post it and paste it right here. And again, 100% of everything goes for Hives for Heroes, vets that looking into bees and all that stuff. All right. Hmm. What type of bad bacteria can survive in honey? So, American foul brood and European foul brood. Now, wait a minute. I believe I should know this, and I have known this in the past. It's just hard to keep all the information, and it's in there somewhere. It's just getting the information out. It's a trick. I believe both American foul brood and European foul brood are bacteria. However, I think American foul brood is spore forming bacteria. Am I correct in saying that? Maybe somebody correct me on that. But both of those can dwell in honey. So when you have European foul brood, it's actually not a bad idea to, I mean, it doesn't hurt humans. So if they have honey in there, you can actually remove that, stick it in the freezer, and then maybe extract that and get it out of the colony and then feed sugar syrup. And one of the best things for eliminating European foul brood is one, changing the queen out and also getting all the food burned up. They definitely don't need to run out of food, but if you can get all the old food out of there that they may have stored a lot of that European foul brood or any of those spores in, you can clean that up. Now, American foul brood here in Tennessee legally, if they have American foul brood, got to burn it up. Got to burn the colonies. I've never had it. It's very rare, but it's very damaging. And honestly, I'm okay with, if I had American foul brood, I'd burn my colony. If it'd be worth it to get rid of it for all the rest of them. Michelle Irwin, when is the Dirt Rooster going to come out with some women's caps? All the ones at the Hive Life conference were too big, and I guess yeah. Well, the problem is, Randy, he's kind of like me. He's a guy, and he doesn't think of these things. But let me tell you, his wife was telling me, and I'm sure she's telling Randy that they needed more girl stuff at the conference. And typically, I think when Randy goes to these things, he doesn't have a nice booth. That's the first time I think they've ever had a booth, and they had an awesome booth. Him and his wife just had a really beautiful booth. But I don't think she thought, and I know that he didn't think there'd be that many women there. And there's a lot of women at the Hive Life conference. And so they're planning on having more girl stuff for next year's conference. And I'm sure that's totally going to be available to ship out as well. So I would imagine, and if Randy's watching this, the pressure's on now, buddy, because I've said it here. You got to have more girl swag. So get to work and help your wife. uh, Randy spent the whole time just running his mouth. I don't know what that's like. Hey, B Lord. So Lord's all the way in Poland. Thanks for coming on, buddy. What's your opinion on walkaway splits? I don't like them. Now, some people do. I prefer raising queen cells, especially in Poland, where you have a very short season. I don't like them at all because if something goes wrong, you have such a short season. You want those queens laying so they can have those big, healthy clusters going into the season. I know that you can still get it done early in spring, but personally, I would rather, if you could figure out how to do our 5 frame nuke method of raising queens, graft some queen cells. I know they have the um, I call NICOT, but it's the Nico method of queen rearing, whatever it is, or maybe something along those lines. It saves you so much time dropping queen cells in, and I think the queen cells are better because you know what you're putting in versus what a walkaway split will give you. It's not that walkaway splits won't work, but percentage wise, they don't perform as good as good made queen cells, and you lose a lot of time. You can do them, but that's just my personal opinion. And I love raising queens, so call me biased. It can work, but you have to consider the percentages, and you might get 90% on a walk away split. You might end up with 50% or 40%. And you might have that experience with queen cells too, but typically I got much higher when I did queen cells. And also, you drop a cell in there, the queen emerges within like 2 days, queen's out, mates, and you have a queen really quickly. Whereas with the walkaway split, you have a lot more time before a queen's ready and available. All right. Yeah, thanks for the information on the AFB guys. Oh, hey Cayman, how about those LSU Tigers going to the Super Bowl? Yeah, how long did he play for the LSU Tigers, and how long did it take for the LSU Tigers go from winning a national championship to being one of the worst teams in the SEC West? Oh, did I say that out loud? Um, well, hey, Joe Burrow seems like a neat quarterback. Honestly, I don't watch a lot of NFL. I think I've watched 2 games this year, and those were recent. But he seems like a good quarterback, and maybe if the NFL would focus on football and less politics, I'd watch a little bit more. But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting the SEC this year. Just really touching the football for a second, because with Brian Kelly being at LSU, we'll see what he does. Of course, Jimbo Fisher, Texas A&M, Nick Saban, the greatest of all time. We had an off year this year. We didn't win a national championship, so we'll just have to deal with taking second, I guess. But there's a lot of big names in the SEC this year, West, and it's going to be just a slugfest. I'm going to love every second of it. Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I hope you're listening, Dirt Rooster too. I'll tell him about this. He'll come and watch. Ripple Effect 2.0, or no, that was Merry Christmas 2.0. Geez, see, you're messing me up, man. Size of extractor would you recommend for 300 hives? 300 hives. Well, you can get by with something somewhat smaller. I wouldn't want anything smaller than a 20 frame datant with a smooth reel, so you can pack 36 frames in there. Datant a lot of times sells segmented ones now, and I really, even though they're made in the USA, my buddy Jed, he's going to be releasing information soon. He came to the conference. He's going to be building extractors and is already building extractors up in Wisconsin that are American made quality and really nice, and are going to have some extra features. And he's going to be innovating over time. He's going to be doing a lot more innovation because he actually wants to. Data could do it if they wanted to. They just don't want to. But you want a 20 frame extractor at least. My buddy in Hawaii, who now has a Cowan, just like I do, um, he runs hundreds of hives and he survived on a 20 frame datant, but it was a pain. But I think you got to go through that early on. Don't you buy what you can afford. So live within your means. We used a 20 frame datant for years with hundreds of hives, and it was the bottleneck and it slowed us down, but we didn't have the money. We were putting money into more important areas. But ideally, you'd want something bigger than that or have two extractors like that. And you can find a lot of times on the commercial beekeeping pages where some commercial beekeepers selling an old Dadant 60 framer that'll actually hold a lot more than that if you're using medium frames and or 120 frames reels, and you can do those. You can buy a Cowan line, but they're so expensive. I got a good price for mine. It was still very very expensive, and they're great. But you have to produce a lot of honey, and we had a good honey year, and I was also able to I had a couple other things working for me as well, to be able to get that. But yeah, I mean, Cowan. Now, see, a Cowan, you don't need that big of an extraction line. It'll sling out 60 frames, and if the temperature's warm, 7 minutes or so, and you just keep running things through really fast. I mean, it's awesome. Yeah, careful, Cayman. He might come up and paint big red purple. Yeah, that would be some fighting stuff right there. I'd have to get a step ladder so I could punch Randy in the face if he painted my truck purple. Yeah, Joe Burrow seems like a nice kid so far. We'll see how that goes long term. We definitely need some more NFL guys to look up to. Um, let's see. Hmm. I just jumped on. Did you say if and when you would be selling videos for the conference? So I said that earlier. They're getting edited right now. I was able to listen to the audio. Sounds really good. I didn't listen to the whole thing, but it's looking like it's going to be the end of the month before they're actually up and able for people to purchase or get one. And so we're still looking into a lot of things as far as that goes, but it looks to be really good, and the quality and everything like that. Right now, we're putting the PowerPoints in. I say we are. I'm getting the PowerPoint. I got the PowerPoints to the guys. I've had some issues getting some of the PowerPoints from the speakers. Um, Really not their fault that much, but um, yeah, they should be done by the end of the month, and I think they'll be really good. From what I could tell, the sound quality was good, and there's going to be some like tidbits of like going through the vendor area and seeing some of the products that were for sale and different odds and ends that which we included. What advice can you give a residential hobbyist newbie who doesn't want multiple hives? I will have a 31 frame horizontal this spring. So that's a tough one, um, because bees are very dynamic. They're short lived. They want to increase in swarm, but they also are, since they're short lived, if something goes wrong, they can get weak and die out somewhat easily. So you're going to probably eventually lose a hive. And if you only have one hive, well, you have zero and you have nothing to split off of. I'm not saying you need to have 10 hives, but if you're wanting to have like the honey production from one hive, it would probably be better to have two hives, maybe three hives. And I know you're in a residential area, but that's just the way the numbers game works. Things happen and you lose the colony. So I would think it would be better to have two hives or three hives. There's really not much you can do about that. Losing bees is just about as normal as anything in keeping bees. You lose cows. Cows get old and queens get old, and the bees supersede and requeen. And a lot of times they fix it, but sometimes they don't. And then by the time maybe you're on vacation for 2 weeks, and it's been by the time you get into them, it's been 3 or 4 weeks, and that queenless period happened during that time. And then you've got to order a queen or something because they're queenless. And the older they get, the less they'll want to take the queen that you give them, even if she's a good one. And stuff like that sometimes can happen in October. I've had queens get superseded in October. Talk about bad timing. So things happen. So it's good to have insurance plans with any operation. If you want 100 production hives, you need to have more than 100 hives. Jim Ladd, appreciate you, man, for coming on. Yeah, I still, I saw that comment on getting Laurel stove. I don't have multiple stoves, but she's making sure I'm cleaning it out and cleaning it out really good. For those of you who don't know why, I spilled a lot of sugar brick recipe of Kent Williams down into it. I've made sugar brick several times before. When you use the normal recipe of just water and sugar, I've never had any issues with it expanding or bubbling or being really sticky. I'm fixing to release a video. Kent Williams recipe, I don't think makes good sugar bricks. I did not like them at all, but there were some good things about them. And it was interesting, very interesting. But man, I had a big mess to clean up in that stove. How do you feel about queen cells compared to virgin queens when making splits? Queen cells are better. Um, Virgins can be introduced, but if you're in a robbing time of the year and the bees are very defensive, then they're very prone to kill the virgin queens as you introduce them. There are methods to introducing virgins, but it's a lot more sensitive of a process than introducing queen cells. And when a virgin comes out of a queen cell, it's just that easy. She comes on out. As long as you don't disturb the colony while she's in her virgin state, they'll accept her. And as long as she goes on a mating flight and comes back, you're in good shape. You can candle queen cells, and I think that's great. Because sometimes you'll have some queen cells that are dead, and you hate taking a good 5 frame nuke or a full size colony, dropping a queen cell, and it was a dud out of the gate. So, and a lot of times people don't realize how many cells end up being poor. So it's not like a huge percentage, but if you have 100 queen cells and you have 8 of them that are poor, that's a guaranteed 8 losses right there. So, just candle them and make sure you have a nice bit of development in there. And I much prefer queen cells. Just I'm all about low maintenance and good introduction. Hey, Steve, appreciate you coming on. Really appreciate you donating to what we're doing and helping us be able to make these live chats available to everybody. Have a good night, buddy. Hey, Cayman, is it safe to, man, doggone it, this thing jumped on me. Ah, there we go. Hey, Cayman, is it safe to wax dip salt treated lumber? I'm building two-way pallets like Ian using treated lumber for the runners. Totally safe. I've done it myself. And the only thing that might be bad is breathing it because you will smell some of the pressure treated material as it comes out of the lumber. That's probably not the best to breathe. I would say microcrystalline and paraffin cooking is not the best thing to breathe probably either. Actually, I know it's not good to breathe. So just make sure you're in a well ventilated area and you don't just stick around and smell it all the time. But yeah, I've done that all my two-way pallets, and man, I think those things are going to be around a long time. I love it. Speaking of wax dip, you guys can send me an email if you would like. We're going to be dipping a lot of boxes, probably around 1,000 of them between now and April. And if you would like to get on the list, if you're willing to come out here and pick them up, what we'll probably do is actually have a day, like a short day, where people can pick up boxes, maybe a couple days, and we're probably going to do like a little short course, and just have people, it'll be really small. It won't be anything like our large 900 people conference, but it'll be probably couple dozen people, something like that, picking up wax dip boxes, and we'll probably just have talk bees, maybe do a question and answer thing like that. Who knows? Maybe if the weather's good, we might even get the bring a beehive down and open that up and show how we make a split or something. I don't know. Regardless, if you want some wax dip boxes and you're willing to drive and pick them up, I'm going to have about 1,000 wax dip boxes available. They're Cypress. They are already assembled. They are glued and nailed, so they are ready to go. And once they're wax dipped, I'm going to put a 5-year warranty on them, so they'll last way longer than that. But that at least gives a little bit of assurances they're going to last a while. And they're good. They're good boxes, especially being Cypress and then being wax dipped. So if anyone is curious about getting some of those out of the thousand. I imagine they'll go really quick this time of the year. Send me an email at Tennessee's Bees. I'm just going to type it down below. Laurel's not here to help me today, so I'm actually surprised this is working at all. Tennessee's Bees at gmail.com. And yes, that is right. You want to order some of those? I'll be posting that so we can get those orders out and get that done. And the price that we're going to have them for is not going to be much more than if you bought just a box pre-assembled from Man Lake or something like that. And they're wax dipped. We bought a lot in bulk. Okay, where did you buy your hat? I like it. This comes from 628 Dirt Rooster. Randy McCaffrey has a YouTube channel. There we go. Man, now I feel like the 90s are back. So at least we don't, back then we didn't have the straight hats. I think that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. If you're a straight hat wearer, I don't really apologize, but you know, I'm sorry you like to wear straight hats. um, oh, where was I? Yeah, this came from Randy McCaffrey. He's got the 628 Dirt Rooster channel. He focuses on doing cutouts of walls and buildings and all kinds of things and getting the bees out of people's houses primarily and property. And he's a very entertaining guy and got a good YouTube channel, way bigger than mine. I think he's got like 120,000 subscribers or something like that. And he's been to my conference every year that we've had it as a fun person to get to meet. And he's got all of these kinds of things that he sells. So shirts, all kinds of stuff. But apparently he needs to work on some girl swag. I can't believe we're talking this much about Randy. He's really not that interesting. But we just keep bringing him up. Yeah, Brian, just send me a message, man. And if you need anything, I'll hook you up. And we're also looking at if, we've only got wax dipped mediums and wax dipped Cypress boxes right now. But if you're needing wax dipped telescoping lids or bottom boards or anything like that, send us a message. We might be able to do that for you, or we may not, but it can't hurt to ask. So, Cayman, what do you feel about purchasing bees coming from the almond fields? Would you rather purchase those or local? Well, that's really a loaded question. Some local bees stink and some almond bees really stink. Really, it's all about the condition the bees are in. I've seen some bees come out of the almonds that have been awesome. I've never purchased any myself, but I know some guys that do it year after year, and they've got good relationships with commercial guys that sell off part of their operation after the almonds are done, and they buy these bees, and they're awesome and in good shape, and they count on them year after year because they do all the things they need to: great queens, dead mice, and good nutrition. But some of the bees come out of the almonds, you will lose your shirt. Same way with local producers. There are some people that do the job right, and there are some people that will sell you crap. You know, you need, when you buy a 5 frame nucleus colony from somebody, you need at least 4 good frames of coverage. I want to see brood, really good brood on 2 frames, and brood on another frame. Doesn't have to be a lot of brood, but I need to see some brood, good pattern, and I want to see them drawing that 5th frame. That's what I expect out of a 5 frame nuke. It's tricky because if you have a nuke that's completely packed with bees, they'll overheat. Even if it's an adjuster nuke box or something that has a lot of ventilation, there's just not enough vents. The problem is, and if it gets a little hot in there, the bees stick their heads in the holes trying to get some air, and they plug the holes, and the colony overheats and dies. That's why when we sell nukes, we actually cut a hole in that jester in the top, and then we put a screen on the top so they can get that heat right out the top. And then on top of that, we actually build our nukes in singles. And usually by the time we sell them, they're about 6 frames strong or so. Some of them are only about 5 frames strong. But that way we'll make sure we put in there what we want people to have, which is 2 really good frames of brood, at least a frame that has some brood on it. Sometimes it'll be 3 really good frames of brood, a good frame of food, and what you might have is 2 frames that are partially drawn out foundation and like 2 frames that are partially food. But it's tricky because with nukes, they can be weak at one period, and 10 days later they're almost ready to swarm out. Not like real weak, but It's a little tedious. That's why we keep them in singles so we have a little bit of play. I landed in Nashville. Nashville's a good city as far as cities go. I go into Nashville periodically just to remind myself why I don't live there. But Nashville's got some cool stuff. Nashville's got great food. That's the best part of Nashville. And they used to have some good country music. All right. I have 30 medium honey super stored in a barn loft on their sides. I want to add them to our 12 colonies judiciously, but I also want to make sure they don't have issues as temps increase. Any advice? Well, what you can do in some years, you can just drop all the supers on 12 colonies. That's almost, it's not quite three apiece. So the colonies that you're going to want to give the three to, or maybe you give them four. Yeah, I just give them three. Three's plenty. And what you can do, yeah, this is exactly what you should do. Oh man, that box isn't going to be able to be used. So you can't give them all three, but you can give some of them three, and then some of them two, and some of them might only need one because they're behind. So that'll help you kind of give the bigger ones more and the smaller ones less. But what you can do is put some foundations in them. So I didn't do a video on this, but Ian Stepler has videos on this. And you can take your combs and then you can stagger some foundations in there towards the edge of the brood nest or every other one. Some people, there's multiple different ways to do it. A lot of times I just stick two in each one. And so let's see. Yeah. If you have 9 frames in a medium, you could take one of those out, stick two foundations in, and stick those in the center. Some people will stick 9 in total. You'll have 2 foundations, 7 combs, and then next to the foundations, you'll scoot those combs in a little bit to try to make the bee space a little bit better. But you're not going to keep them in that long. This is going to take a little bit more work on your part, but can really help you out. And so what you do as the bees are stuffing that nectar in those combs, they're going to draw out those foundations to try to create more room for that nectar. And all it takes is them starting on it a little bit. They don't even have to be fully drawn. But even if they can get them 25% drawn a piece or 30% drawn, then you go in there, you take those foundations out of each one, and then you stick them in a box just full of foundations and put the combs back and replace the combs back where you took them out of those. So now you have comb boxes, and now you have several foundation boxes per hive that have a couple started foundations into comb that has a little nectar in it. That's all you need. Once they have a little bit of comb in those foundation boxes, they will start drawing those out really good. And that can help retard swarming and help you get some combs drawn. And just make sure whenever you do that process, you stick those foundations underneath the combs. So the bees have to go through those combs that they started on the foundations, and they continue to do that and then expand the other foundations. And also they want to draw foundation better when it's next to the brood nest. You can have an excluder there too, so they can't get up there and lay in them. And then they'll just keep going past if they need to and put all the extra nectar in those combs. And it's a great system. You'll get some new combs drawn. You'll have more space before too long, and you'll have more combs for next year. But as the season develops and your bees, you'll see, wow, these are the champs. These are the kind of ones right in the middle. Here are the losers. You'll just have to make sure, take care of your champs first. We have a saying here: we baby our wimps, not our we baby our champs, not our wimps. That's what we say. I gotta get Laurel in here so I stop messing up so much. Hmm. All right. So I'm reading some of these comments and some of them don't apply to me. Don Bearden, good to see you. Roll Tide, buddy. We'll see you later. Now, again, I'm going to be at multiple conferences here soon. So you might be able to see me. I'll be at the Tennessee Beekeepers Association conference March 4th and 5th, presenting there. And if you meet me at this very affordable conference, several good speakers, and then I'll be there. Oh goodness. I'll be up at Kelly's the 11th. So here in just a 5 days, Friday I think it is, I'm going to be up at Kelly's. There's not actually going to be any bee classes. I'm actually teaching a course for some of the employees there at Man Lake slash Kelly's in Clarkson, Kentucky. But if you show up and want to talk bees, I'll talk bees. And I'm going to be at like the Northwest Kentucky Beekeepers School here the next month, and a couple of things. I'll announce these things as they come. But if you're in the neighborhood and want to stop by and talk and meet, that'd be fun. Maybe go out and grab dinner. Yep, got to keep everybody busy. Hey, Bruce, how you doing? So I really think yes, allowing those bees to build wax during the honey flow, I really think helps also retard the swarming impulse. Once they commit to drawing foundations, they do a really good job. Once they commit to putting the honey away from the queen, they do a really good job. It's all about stimuli with bees. Once you get them to commit to we're storing honey and we're drawing foundation and making more comb, that's the mode that they're in. The only way they're going to knock out of that typically and go into the swarm mode is when the colony gets crowded, the queen run out of room, or they run out of room for honey, and they start placing that nectar down in the brood chamber. So it's all about stimuli with bees, and honey production is literally about controlling and trying to keep the bees in a mindset of, per- you know, storage, honey storage, as opposed to reproduction. Hey, Cayman, do you graft from queens you raise or do you buy breeder queens? Thanks. Hey, Sourwood Branch, I actually have never purchased a expensive breeder queen. I've always raised queens from my own, and I think it's awesome. I have purchased all kinds of queens over the year, just dozens and dozens of types, and nothing has worked as good for me as the queens that I raise myself. I'm able to dial it in a lot more for what I need. We only select from those that survive the winter, so that's we select for bees that survive. Uh, we select for a lot of things. We don't want European foul brood. We don't want chalk brood. So if the queens exhibit that, we don't have them. We want queens that are gentle. I don't like bees that hunt me down. I still get stung by my bees, but they're much more gentle than a lot of bees, and that's just because we continue to select for that. So I love raising my own queens, and I think bees actually thrive on the diversity that we give them. We're not really hard nosed about getting really really dialed in. I think there should be people who do that, so I can buy some and try them out and see if I like it. But I think for your average beekeeping operation, you can keep it pretty simple and have really good results. The main problems with queens in our industry is really not genetics. It's I think a lot of it is just quality of the queen, not getting mated good enough and not maybe getting the nutrition they need as they're developing, not getting to lay long enough either when they come back. That really impacts the queens as well. Not getting to lay long after they come back from a queen flight. And also I love queen cells because if you drop them in, you don't get that. You drop them into a colony and they come back and they lay, and there's no putting the queens in the cage. You avoid that. I love queen cells. More and more, I love queen cells all the time. What's your opinion on Cordovan bees? They're nice. I mean, they're good. Honestly, they're not perfect, but no bee is perfect. My bees aren't perfect. The best Cordovans that I had were ones that I purchased and then raised daughters off of. I felt like they did better than the ones that I purchased, but I think that the ones that I did got better quality control and therefore ended up laying and being better queens long term than the originals. Again, I think a lot of it has to do with the quality of the environment that they're raised in more than the genetics. A lot of these huge companies buy wonderful breeder queens to raise those commercial queens. The genetics aren't that bad. It's just the quality control. And when you're raising many, many, many hundreds of thousands of queens, you can't do what someone like myself can do or what you can do for yourself. Plus, I think you get some of the hybrid vigor too, because they get those breeder queens and they try to keep it all really dialed in and the same. Whereas you can have a certain trait, and then there's more drone diversity out there, I believe, in those micro batches of queens, and so you get a little bit more genetic diversity, which I think is a good thing, unless they mate with the drone that has really aggressive tendencies, and I don't like that behavior at all. So yes, someone answered above. The Tennessee Beekeeping Conference is going to be held at MTSU, which is in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, March 4th and 5th, and I'll be doing I think three discussions there, two main discussions myself, and then I'll be collaborating with and doing like a round table panel as well with Gus and a few other guys. It's gonna be fun. I think it's going to be the best TBA conference, and not just because I'm there, but we have a new administration as a president, and a lot of people getting involved that I think are going to do a lot better job than past administrations have. And I think they're focusing more on Tennessee beekeeping too. Which, I mean, if you're a Tennessee beekeeping conference, you should. I think they've done a bad job of that in the past. So, new administration, new plans, new goals, and thankfully, I'm going to be a part of it. I'm excited. Hi from Bryan, Alabama. Roll Tide. Awesome. Have you started using pollen patties this year? Hope. No, I will be soon, though. The maple pollens are just fixing to start good. And that's the perfect time, I think, to start pollen patties and just help those bees will start wanting to brood. And those pollen patties are there to fill in nutritional gaps and any gaps that may be caused from maybe excess rainfall, cold snaps, and anything that could prevent your bees getting more pollen come in. It's just all about smoothing those gaps out, and especially getting that first round of brood off, because that first round of brood takes basically the last push of your winter bees is that first round of brood, and they're going to push as hard as they can to get that successful. And I think helping that first round of brood that's the most critical round of brood of the entire year. So those pollen patties can kind of help. Okay. Bob recommends Cayman. He does. Wow. Yeah. Thank Bob. I've recommended Bob a few times myself. Bob's a great guy. I've been very blessed to be able to be at several conferences that Bob's been at. Well, and a couple of those conferences were the ones that we put on, but I've been invited other places and Bob's been there. And it's actually a lot nicer than um, going to my conference, because when I at my conference, I'm so busy working, I never have time to sit down and talk. But so we were in Iowa and one or two other places, and we were able to sit down and just talk a little bit about direction and some things he's learned since he was in his 30s with bees. And Bob's just a really great guy. He's been wonderful for YouTube and for a lot of beekeepers. And Bob may not understand it, but he's doing a world of good. One of the things we're trying to do is combat a lot of the very, very poor information that is on YouTube. That it's not fundamental. It's not based on working. It's based on what can get me clicks on YouTube and drive my YouTube channel forward. Because if you want to have a big YouTube channel, I mean, this is just the truth. Um, Education is not where it's at. I mean, you can have a good YouTube channel. I'm not complaining because I'm very happy with what we have. And I would rather have what we have than have 400,000, 4 million subscribers and it to be based on falsehoods. But if I want a bigger YouTube channel, I need to get into entertainment, being goofy, blowing up more beehives. I did do that once, but there actually was some educational stuff towards the end. But Bob's not in it for the glory or anything else. He's in it to help beekeepers, and that we've got a great group of guys and gals that are really coming onto YouTube and other platforms and really helping us all just get information so much faster. And it only is going to just bring about more innovation, more people getting into bees, and people staying into bees because they're keeping their bees alive. This is my 19th season. I've never been so excited about the future of beekeeping. Yeah, Bob is the man. I've told him though, um, he needs to take care of himself because he's still working pretty hard. And he got those shingles a while back, and that was the only video of Bob's that I watched. I was like, "Oh, I don't know if I wanna watch this." And, he was just getting stung next to the shingles and all that kinda stuff, and, that hurt. I didn't get it the sting, and that one hurt. But I told Bob, I'm like, "Man, Bob, you got, these shingles, man, you gotta take care of yourself. We still need to get at least another 20 years out of you before you kick the bucket." And he's like, "Well, Cayman, I'll make a mental note of that." It was I laughed so hard. He's hilarious. Yeah, but and Fred was at our our conference, and Fred's great. Most people don't think Fred has a sense of humor. Fred's got a crazy sense of humor. The driest sense of humor the world has ever seen. Hmm. Oh, hey, Bonnie. East Bernstein got a lot of publicity from your little explosion. I forgot I mentioned East Bernstein, Kentucky in that video. I apologize. Surprisingly, you release a video about that and you do a spoof on that. The recipe comes from East Bernstein, Kentucky, to kind of throw a little bit of a jab at our Kentucky brethren. And of course, then I find out I have at least two women that live in East Bernstein that watch my videos, and a couple other people as well. So they're like, "Hey, just so you know," well, a couple of them were like, "Yeah, we've got some smart people here," and then there was a couple people like here, like, "Yeah, I could see that happening here in East Bernstein, Kentucky." So, it, I pick on everybody. I don't discriminate against anybody. I don't miss anyone. Hmm. So Natalie, of course, did a video recently on apitherapy. I don't know if I've got that book right here. Uh, I think I see it. Hang on. Yeah. So I'm only like a couple chapters into this book by Charles Mraz, and Michael Palmer learned a lot from Charles Mraz. I think he's definitely a pioneer, especially in apitherapy, which is like bee sting venom therapy. There's other things as well where it's propolis and other things like that. But it's definitely an odd genre of beekeeping, and I'm not one of those people that I hate. I really hate stuff, whether it's beekeeping treatments for Varroa or health, where people just start saying, "Well, this works because it's supposed to be healthy." It's like honey. Honey is wonderful for neutralizing cuts. It creates hydrogen peroxide, and that hydrogen peroxide helps kill a lot of debris and stuff in there. However, you cut your finger completely off, you're not going to stick it back together with honey. And a lot of people think that you can ingest it and get similar results, but that gets neutralized in your gut. So I feel like really feel like honey's best benefits are actually topical ones, the ones that are minor cuts, skin. It's really good for skin and hair. You can mix it up in certain things for hair. I know people who have done that. I think it's wonderful for throat and voice related issues. I love honey for that. And hey, if you're needing a boost of energy that's way better than a sugar product, honey is awesome for that. I've gotten some honey highs, let me tell you. Now, the pollen thing with honey is a little bit of an issue. And I'm getting off on a rabbit trail here. I apologize, but you all know how I am about that. Let's get back to this book before I forget. Bob Benny doing the bee sting on himself. Natalie did a video with this book, and I told Natalie, I'm like, "Hey, we should get this book. You should get one. I'm going to get one." And then she turned it into a competition and said she was going to read it before me. Well, Laurel, I was in Missouri at a conference there, not with Natalie or anything like that. And I wasn't able to get home. Laurel forgot to order it for a couple days, and then the person that shipped it out took forever. And by the time I got my book and opened it up, Natalie had already read the whole thing. And then she rubbed it in my face on a YouTube channel and said, "Na na 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 na. I read it before you." So, that's not very nice. But then again, 13-year-olds reading bee books on apitherapy. Can you really complain about that? I'm not going to complain about that. That's awesome. I expect a lot of cool things from Natalie in the future. She's pretty cool. DP, I have spent my life getting beaten by girls at things. My wife, my buddies say all the time that she is able to do more guy things than I can. She put the roof on our house. She can do welding. She hooked up my Cowan extractor. I needed some electrical work to wire it in because it has like 220 and different things. And yep, she did that. I am awesome. I hold a steady flashlight, unlike any person. Really good at it. And I say this, I can do a lot of stuff too, but Laurel has a lot of traits and she's really skilled at a lot of things. So she beats me at a lot of stuff. I have no problem getting beaten by a girl, especially if it's my wife, because usually the stuff she beats me in, it helps me out. I don't mind being wrong. A lot. She told me it was a good idea to do this YouTube channel. I said it was a terrible idea. I've never been so glad to be wrong in my life. And she said it was a good idea to get married. And one time I told her it was a terrible idea to get married. Our families were too different. So what do I know? I mean, should you guys maybe even be listening to me at this point? I don't have a good, when it comes to girls, I have a terrible track record of being right. So guys, I can handle guys. Challenge accepted. But this so far, I haven't read it all the way through, but it seems to be a really good book. And it's not one of those hippy dippy books. And no offense to hippies, but I don't like books that just talk about how the cosmos from Jupiter and Saturn are bringing these energies down. And as long as our bodies are in the right frequency and we're in tune, everything's going to align themselves. That's not how it works. Usually, you gotta roll up your sleeves and get to work, and it's complicated. Life is complicated. Would you recommend using a double screen board to make splits? What way do you use most to create splits? I do use a double screen board to make splits. It really just depends on the time of the year and what size of splits. If I'm making small splits, like a 5 frame nuke or less, totally. But if I'm wanting to take a double deep and split it right down the middle, I just take a single one deep box. I'll divvy up the resources so they'll all have even amounts of brood and food. And I'll just take those and one goes on this bottom board, one goes on this, two lids, done. But a double screen board is wonderful for small splits. It has a lot of uses. Of course, Bob talked about that at our conference. He has stuff on our YouTube video. Rick Sutton uses them. My buddy Jake Osborne uses double screen boards. I've been using them a lot lately. They are a product that is going to be used more and more now that the education is getting out on their value. They're used a lot overseas. European beekeepers, certain regions, especially um, Eastern Europe, from my I understand, use a lot of double screens. I think in Romania and Ukraine, Lithuania. But again, I'm not super familiar with a lot of that, so that's what I've been told. Bob was the one that told me, and I usually listen to Bob. Bob knows a lot of stuff. Been beekeeping for longer than I've been alive, so I usually err on the side of Bob being right. I mean, and even if Bob was wrong, it's hard to argue with someone as soft spoken as Bob, anyways. You feel bad about it even when you're right. Yeah, Brian Reese, know your strengths. Hey, just pick your battles, and we all have talents, and there's some areas I don't do good. So Zelma asked, "What year of marriage will we be celebrating soon?" So my anniversary is in April, and April, oh boy, brain fart, 9th. Yeah, April 9th. And wait, yeah, April 9th. So, whew, I've got a daughter that's the 11th, so sometimes I get them confused. That's my excuse. It will be year 11. So, I can't believe it's already been 11 years. Best 11 years of my life. Yeah, Natalie's a great kid. She's got a great family too. Chris Summers is on. Yeah, she did a video with Chris, and he was the one getting stung because unfortunately Chris is going through some shoulder pain and stuff. And hope you get that taken care of. Chris, if you'd like for me to come down to Missouri and or up to Missouri, I should say, and do some bee sting therapy for you, I can bring up a lot of bees and we could film it. It'd be great for the YouTube channel and good for just everybody involved, Chris. I think I could be a little faster than Natalie. I think she drug it out. Um, I think I can get it over with quick. And I think one sting, three at a time. You got to raise the dosage, raise your tolerance up. It's kind of like getting used to poison, like you see in a lot of the old movies. So you just need to raise your tolerance up a little bit. Just wait for a 30-year anniversary. No, let's not rush at CS for sure. Birthday is the 10th. You're fired. Yeah, remember it's recorded. That's right. She's probably on here live now. I think she's back. I think I heard her come in the door. So she's back home. Ah, so Jake is your cousin, Tristan. Okay, well, that name sounded familiar, that last name. I've seen you on here several times. Yeah, he seems like an all right guy, He's really tall and big. I don't know why like all of my buddies in beekeeping are huge. What's up with that? It's like why can't any of my buddies be like 5'7" or 5'8"? That's still taller than me, but I mean, at least it'd be nice. Like Randy McCaffrey, what was it, like 6'4"? Bob's probably 6'2" or 6'3". Of course, Jake, I don't know what he is, but probably 6'2". It's like all these guys, they're massive. I don't know what they were eating when they were kids. I didn't get any of it. Can you touch on installing packages on drawn comb? Thoughts on installing with all 10 frames drawn are or only a portion? Thanks, like your channel. They definitely will grow a lot faster on drawn combs for sure. You can just what I would do is stick them on the drawn myself. Sure, you can get them to draw out some combs if you want to, but it will take them longer to build up. And so just if you're needing combs and you need to draw some more out, yeah, you can use them for that and they'll do a good job. But if you're actually wanting to potentially get a little bit of a honey crop or make more splits in the season, you want to throw them on that comb. They'll just go straight to, and you'll feed them less too because they're not having to draw it out. So all the feed that you'll give them will either go directly to brood or they'll just store it, as opposed to directly to brood, drawing combs, and then they're trying to store it. So it's really just a matter of what you want to do. Oh, there's an internet problem? Anyone having some issues? Hmm. Maybe it's good now. To be or not to be, or are you just small? I'm not small. I'm just in this country, people eat too much chicken that has steroids in it and milk. They put all the hormones and stuff these days for higher production of milk and all that stuff. And that's my parents fed me healthy food. That's got to be what it is. I just was not, juiced up like one of those fast grown chickens. I think that's what it is. Jonathan says Natalie's going to be taller than me at the next conference. Well, she can join the club with 90% of the rest of the people at the conference. She probably will. It's no big deal. I have a fun time of it. I can't do anything about the height anyways. And there's actually a lot of times Jake Osborne and I were talking about this because we were picking up some stuff there at Scottsville yesterday. Boy, what a long day that was. And he's so tall, when there's a single on the ground, he's got to drop down so far just to do the management and all that pressure on his back. For me, I can just, squat down a little bit, bend my knees, and I'm right there, pick that thing up, no problem. So now when the supers, like the honey production colonies, and I end up with, a deep box and 4 or 5 mediums as supers, and then a deep box underneath that one, plus the pallet. Yeah, that's a little high for me. Um, I just get Laurel to do it. She's tough. A dirt rooster. Yeah, must have been royal jelly. Ate too much Lucky Charms. Hey, now. Actually, Randy, I couldn't eat cereal as a kid. It really made me sick. Yeah, well, my brothers could eat it. I couldn't eat it. It was really frustrating, let me tell you, because I like cereal. I like a lot of that stuff. I just can't eat stuff like normal people. It's really frustrating. Hey, Cayman, has your maples started producing pollen yet? Yes, just a little bit. They're just now starting. So, woohoo. My wife always says height's not an accomplishment. The person has nothing to do with it. Could that be though, Gus? Because you're a really that's another buddy of mine that's in beekeeping that's really big. Gus is a lot taller than me. Yeah, you're right. It's not an accomplishment, but um, I think it's hilarious. It doesn't bother me. I just mess around. I like to joke and laugh. So I'm thinking about going Apivar plus oxalic acid dribble for this next season. Any thoughts? I think that's a great strategy. There has been some concerns with Apivar, so just do a follow up. Do an alcohol wash or two. Make sure that it is doing its job. But if it does its job like it's supposed to, then yeah, I think Apivar and oxalic acid dribble would be a great way to control mites. And there are people I know that actually use that with good success. Came and I have a dead out that probably still has a bunch of honey in it. Will that get all moldy sitting in the box the rest of the winter? It's pretty moist here. It may or may not. The thing with cool weather, it's hard in wintertime, even if it rains and stuff, it's hard for the air to hold a lot of water into it because colder air just can't hold a lot of water. And that's why, of course, when you have warm air that meets a cold window, you get so the inside of my house is warm. I've got single panes in this old place, and so I get a lot of condensation on them because that hot air can hold so much more moisture and condense on that window because it hits that cold window and just shrinks that air down, and it just can't hold the water anymore. So, if that hive's outside and it's really cold, it probably isn't going to absorb a lot of moisture into that honey. But if you can just and you have a place to store it, just go ahead and take it off and stick it in the freezer if you can, if your spouse will let you. And then you can, as long as there was no disease issues, like they died of American foul brood or something crazy like that, and feed some other colonies. Or if you don't have other colonies and you buy a package or something, that's some food you can give them. I've done that before in the past. The only issues I've ever had that I've had to watch out for is if a colony died with European foul brood, then I would not want to feed that back to another colony. Tim said it right there. She does make sure I open up all the jars in the house. She tries to make me feel good about myself. I came and I can't get this jar open. Can you help me with this? And I'm like, uh-huh, I know you can get this jar open if you really wanted to. But, a hive that becomes honey bound, is it more likely to swarm or abscond? Absolutely. It won't really abscond, but it will swarm. An abscond would be where they leave and they'll leave brood, resources, everything. A swarm, they should leave a certain degree of bees and enough to cover the brood and try and have queen cells in there. An abscond, they won't leave any queen cells to replace it. Or a swarm, they'll leave some queen cells behind and they'll be able to hopefully requeen themselves. Hey, I got a nice jar opening thingamajig at the conference, Global Patties, I think. What are you talking about? Global Patties actually had some jar opening dealios. What are you talking about, Gus? Hey, Jeremy Lindsay with Lindsay Homestead Farms. It goes really good. Really good. I actually had some of the honey you gave me the other day. Put it on some toast with some cinnamon. Hey, Cayman, how often have you seen American foul brood? I've never seen it. It's kind of rare, and we do a pretty good job of trying to make sure that we don't get equipment that is bad, and we don't ever sell it or do anything that's kind of crazy. It's still really rare though. Tennessee is really hard nosed about it. A little excessively hard nosed, in my opinion, but it does keep American foul brood at bay. But there's states that keep American foul brood at bay that are a little relaxed on things. But I've never seen it in person. I've never known anybody personally as many of my beekeeping buddies that have had American foul brood. And yet we still can't sell combs in this state. Yeah, sorry to hear that, Harley Dickin. So yeah, Apivar, Bob's tested it. I have tested it. There's a lot of other beekeepers. Another guy I know that has 400 something colonies, really, really good. Used Apivar for years, and also rotated treatments. Bob's really good about rotating treatments. I rotate treatments. Don't have I don't even have a long history of use. It's like I've only been using Apivar for maybe 5 years. Well, prior to last year, and probably 6 years now if you count it. But anyways, so it's not like we've had an abusive history with using the product, but there are rumors. I think they're coming from places where these guys aren't like just some hobby beekeeper from a bee club. No offense to hobby beekeepers, but these are rumors coming from the scientific community and researchers that Vita Farm has been tinkering around with the strips, and they're not releasing the amatraz properly. And that's a problem. And you spend a lot of money for a treatment, you expect it to work. And what do we get? We've spent a lot of money. We still have mites and sometimes lose hives over it. It's frustrating, but we have so few good options and treatments. And it seems like we may have lost Apivar. Some people still say it's working for them, and some people are saying that they're resolving the issue. I think the moral of the story is trust but verify. Oh, so it was a square cloth thing, the griplets. Gus, did you actually get any of the global patties at the conference? I suspect that we will sell a semi load of global patties next year. We sold a ton of product, and we had a hard time, convincing some vendors to come this year because they just didn't know. But after we had almost 900 people, and then if you count all the product that we sold, which was just hundreds of thousands, hundreds and hundreds of thousands, not just one or two hundreds of thousands. Um, the vendors are ready to come back. We're going to have great deals again, more deals, diverse deals. Many people reported paying for their tickets with the deals. And we're trying to do as many things as we can to make it as affordable as possible while you get to meet legends like Bob and possibly Ian Stepler this coming year, and other cool people, and even the ones that maybe aren't as well known. We're bringing several speakers in this year that are just awesome, and they should be well known. So it's a lot of fun, good information, fun times, good location. The only thing I've got to work on is we're going to be probably expanding to 1,200 to 1,500 people for the next year. And the conference is going to be, we're going to rent the entire Sevierville Convention Center. Actually, we've already paid and reserved for the convention center for next year. So the 6th and 7th of January, we will be having 2 awesome days of beekeeping, and anything that you all can think of that will make it better. Products, vendors, conference surveys coming out soon. So if you went to the conference, want to say, hey, this is what I want to hear next year. This is who I want to hear from. This is what I liked, but I like more of it. Let us know. We need help. Brian Reese, do you know of an app that tracks what pollen is blooming in a person's local area to help with less experienced beekeepers that don't have access to a mentor? Brian, I've never heard of anything like that. If someone could pull that off, that would be one of the coolest beekeeping apps. There's a lot of beekeeping apps out there, but that would be better than any of them, I think. Hmm. Yeah, Dolly Parton says, she's not going to sing with me. I couldn't. She said that I don't, my voice, the vocal range just doesn't match with hers. She won't let me sing baritone, and it's a deal breaker. Dolly Parton won't be um, being part of the bluegrass show next year. I'm sorry, DP. We will have a bluegrass show again, though, for sure. A bottling company and possibly pollinators, seed provider. We're definitely planning on having a plant provider and possibly some seeds. I'm talking to some gardening companies that have flowers and different things, and seeing if we can have some garden seeds there because a lot of us love to plant gardens as well. I don't want to get this conference to where we have a bunch of nutty stuff that doesn't pertain to beekeeping, but I would like to have one booth that had beekeeping type of pollinator flowers, trees, and also some garden seeds like tomatoes and cucumbers because it'd be cool to be able to buy those in person. And I love that kind of stuff. So I wouldn't mind having a little bit of segueing things like that, but we're not going to go into like having something that's just not even remotely related, or even just having a bunch of stuff that's not bee stuff. Yeah, Shane Williams. The French and the Canadians, they have to, have the flags. I'm sure they're proud of their countries. I hope that they are, but we're definitely not going to let the Canadians and the Frenchies outdo us. That's for sure. Well, Bonnie, I was really glad to see you, and your grandson was there as well and interested, and that's something else we're working on right now. We just had a lot of catch up going on, but we're planning on having the information for the youth sponsorships, and right now we're up to where we can have, I think it's 22 kids with full rides, sponsored meals, all that stuff, and a guardian. So we're going to try to have that available right around springtime. And what we're wanting and looking for, I'll go ahead and give you a sneak peek on that, is for maybe the kids to leave a small letter. I would like it, or it could just be a YouTube video. Um, the more, the better. If you don't want to do YouTube, that's fine. But we really want to see what are the ways your kids are involved, or your grandkids, or whoever. What are the ways that you're involved with beekeeping? And if you're a first year beekeeper, you're going to have a harder time competing with kids who have been doing it for 3 or 4 years, who are doing a lot more. This is designed, this is my opinion on it, but this is designed to help those who have the most potential continue on and take the next step. That's what this is designed for. This is not designed to get new beekeepers into beekeeping. We want young men and women who are already really involved and have a lot of potential to come and get even more education, to get excited, to be exposed to so many companies and products. There was tons of products at that conference I had never seen before in 19 years. Tons of products that I had never seen before and always wanted to see. So we want those young men and women to see that, be inspired to either create new products, to be better beekeepers. And if we can get them at a younger age, I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but I started when I was just turning 15. Do you know how much help that was to me to start at an early age? It was a huge help. I'm 33 years old. I already have 19 years of experience. I am not the smartest beekeeper out there, but I have 19 years under my belt. And thankfully, over the years, I've made a lot of friends, like, Gus, who's on here, that's helped me out over the years. And I've been able to hopefully help him, I think, a few times out as well. And we've worked together. But now we have this opportunity as this massive community to be able to do way more than what we've ever been able to before, to learn education before we would have ever had access to it before, and to reach out to the scientific community, the bee breeders, the elite beekeepers like Bob, to reach out to guys like Richard Noel, who's a very competent beekeeper in France, and see, whoa, this is how they're dealing with the Asian hornets. And this is what we're going to have to do if we ever have that issue in our areas. And hopefully we won't. We may, for the first time, actually start getting ahead of a few things in beekeeping. Who knows? But getting young people involved and getting them involved at a young age just spells awesome things for the rest of us. Because one of these days, I'm going to be old, and I want young people to be around to create devices that make it easier for me as an old guy to keep bees. That's how it's supposed to work. The old people are supposed to manipulate the young people in doing a lot of stuff. But that doesn't the young just getting the young people involved. So, anyways, I'll get off my soapbox here. Goodness, we're almost 2 hours in. Maybe there could be a vendor that sells honey bottling supplies. Yeah. We tried to have somebody this year. They couldn't make it. Planning on having at least one or two vendors that really focus a lot on jars, bottling, all that stuff. Yep, you said it, Tim. Feed the champs. Take care of your champs. But so yeah, for the kids, they can send in a YouTube video, send in a little article, send in some pictures, send in a program that they're involved in with. Maybe it's a master beekeeping program. And it's not that it's all about that. We just want to see that they're serious. That's the takeaway. Are they serious? Can we do a convoy? Hey, sure, why not? Hey, Bruce with Southern Sass Apiaries, thank you so much for coming on again and donating. Have a good night, and we'll see you in the next live. That live will be February the 17th with Cameron Jack talking a lot of details on oxalic acid. Jamie learned most of everything I know about collecting bee venom. I have learned from this book, and I'm still learning it. I would not consider myself even remotely an expert. So I don't know much, but Charles Mraz, who wrote Health and the Honeybee, is considered one of the world's experts on the subject. Hmm. I've been looking for a supplier for comb honey boxes. The big companies, Man Lake and Dana, seem to want a fortune for them. Well, they like their money. Um, And, but that's the best thing I think about our conference. I know I'm not saying maybe it's too far for you to come. I get that, but that's what I love about it the most is people get options, and if the best option is Dayton or Man Lake, well, Dayton didn't show up this year, so that wasn't an option. But everybody, you could see dozens. We had 33, 34 vendors, and you had dozens of options to be able to get your boxes from somebody else instead of Dayton or Man Lake if you didn't like what you were getting. Customer service. And with a lot of these medium sized companies, these medium to small sized companies, you can meet the owners. And so you know who you're dealing with when you call the companies. With Man Lake or one of those guys, you have to go like six chains up the ladder just to be able to talk to somebody who actually can do a lot. And then they won't understand beekeeping at that point anyways. Hmm. Yeah, Gus Mitchell, community and cooperation amongst everyone is important. Really happy to see it so strongly demonstrated at the conference. By the way, my buddy Gus, I'm gonna throw a plug for him. He just started a YouTube channel, and if you could show him some appreciation and go and subscribe or at least look at his videos. He's just getting started, but I think he's got a lot to offer. I know being a friend of Gus for well, goodness, it's been before I got married, so 12, 13, 14 years. He has a lot of practical information and a lot. He has, even though he's in Tennessee, his area is so different, so different than mine. So I think you can count on some really good nuts and bolts beekeeping over there. And he's getting into some interesting things. He does a lot of, well, he's getting into some interesting things, but he also does a lot of interesting things now, stuff that I don't do, like comb honey. He raises queens a little bit different than I do. And he's got some Russian type bees and looking to get into that more possibly in the future. So he's got a lot of cool things going on. So maybe check out his channel. And Gus, isn't that just Gus Mitchell or something like that, or is it Crane's Nest River? I can't remember. Maybe leave that down below. I know, Gus. I know. Well, next time I come down that way, you're buying me barbecue. That's all I've got to say. Thoughts on CBD mixed with raw honey looking I don't really know much about that, Michael. I've never used CBD, haven't ever researched into it. Um, so I don't know. Uh, there could be something to that. Honey makes a lot of things better, that's for sure. But I don't even know why people use CBD. Is it for inflammation, pain relief? What is it? Um, I use a lot of natural food products for inflammation and things like that. Let's see. Lots of demand for CBD and honey. Well, see, there's a lot of niches for honey and things. I know there are people that are doing infused honeys and Of course, we had a creamed honey display at our conference. The guy was making and bottling creamed honey there. It was awesome. Lysa makes some really cool stuff. And so yeah, just there's so many. That's what's so cool about all this is we're getting exposed to so many different ways and so many types of machines, and there's a lot of different ways to market. Specialty marketing is really where it's at. So CBD, there are people that do what's the big craze right now? Elderberry. They use honey for elderberry, and they use a couple other natural things in there to help cinnamon and things, just to help you boost your immune system and everything. And that's supposed to work really good. So a lot of different ways to take your honey business and value add to it. Well, you're right, Thomas Robinson. There's no such thing as free shipping. Free shipping is you paying for shipping without it being called shipping. You know, it's really yeah. There's no such thing as free. Speaking of, we're gonna have wax dip boxes. I'm gonna sell 1,000 of them. They're gonna be Cypress boxes, deeps and mediums, and we are going to have a day or two this spring. The plan is like March and probably early April. And you can purchase these. They're assembled, they're glued and nailed, and they are finger jointed Cypress boxes, and they will be wax dipped for 15 minutes using microcrystalline and paraffin, just like I do mine. And I'm going to have that available soon if you want to order any of those and get on those 1,000 before they're gone because they will sell really quickly. We will You can email me at Tennessee's. So it's Tennessee with an S, BEES at gmail.com. And you can let me know if you want some of those. And I'll be putting out an order form before too long. And we'll be selling those really for almost the same price as if you purchased an assembled box with no paint from like Man Lake or something like that. But you have to pick these up. I'm not shipping anything, so you have to consider that. But they're wax dipped, ready to go, and you shouldn't have to worry about them. I'm going to do a 5-year warranty on them. Shouldn't have to worry about them for way, way longer than that. You know, I've heard guys like Bob's friend, Chris Warner, um, which is one of our speakers for the next Hive Life conference. He's got some boxes that are working up towards 30 years being wax dipped one time. So, you know, Cypress wax dip boxes going to last a long time. And you're ready to go, take them home, and they're loaded. We might actually have some syrup and some other things to sell there as well. Mm. Yeah, Cypress is great. Thanks, DP. Yeah, so subscribe to Crane's Nest Honey, which is Gus Mitchell. Good deal. All righty. Well, folks, I've got to get going. Laurel's been back for about 40 minutes with my dinner. I'm sure it's cold by now, but when you're talking bees, it's no big deal. It's a lot of fun. It was so fun talking to a lot of you in Scottsville. I've got to get off of here, but again, I'll see you all on the 17th with Cameron Jack. I believe that's at 7 p.m. Just watch around. I'll be announcing that on the time frame, but it should be 7 p.m. Central Time. Cameron Jack, and we will see you in other videos and more on the way. Just gearing up to get back into the YouTube videos. So looking forward to seeing you on a lot of those. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your questions. We'll be doing a lot more Q&A videos in the future, getting to questions. Take care. God bless.